Hello, everyone, and welcome to another PropTech Ramble. Today, I am joined by Jenna Giegerman. Jenna is the Senior Director of Real Estate and Strategy at Citrix. Jenna, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Jenna, rather than me do it really badly, you've been in real estate and been a real estate executive in operations and lots of other areas. So could you just let everyone know who you are and what you do and a bit of history about yourself so I don't do you any injustice?
Sure. Short version, I've done about every job in commercial real estate, except being an attorney, but I've played one on TV. Certainly have done my fair share of contract drafting. But I started, I have a design degree in architecture. I have master's degrees, MBA, and studying regional planning. So kind of that whole holistic view, grounded in a design orientation. Started doing affordable housing development, moved to real estate consulting, real estate investment trust, did title insurance with their national markets. And then my job before Citrix, I was the chief operations officer for an architecture firm. My only job in architecture, despite my design degree from MIT, and then I've been at Citrix almost 10 years. So I've done a lot of jobs within Citrix. Most recently, I'm responsible for managing our large Americas portfolio, our largest sites, including our headquarters, and then I do a lot of our global initiatives, like the return to office and our technology initiatives.
Thank you very much. And on that, the really interesting part for me is, and I'll come back to Citrix so people know who it is and what it does, but we're going to get onto the workplace app and why you built it. But for those people who don't know who Citrix is and what they do, could you just give everyone an overview on Citrix as well?
Sure. Citrix has had tools that they support work anywhere, anytime, on any device. So a huge when we all had to go home and go hybrid, a lot of people had already been using Citrix, for example, to remote desktop in, but it really became a tool for a lot of people to be able to do their work and access their files. So we have a consolidated workspace platform, and it has desktop as a service, app delivery and security, collaborative work solutions, all within one cloud-based platform. And so that pulls in a lot of our historic tools, our current tools, like file sharing and signature and those kinds of things, all in one easy to access from any device place.
Yeah, cool. And I've been working with Citrix probably since 1998. When I used to build data centers for a company called Level 3, which is now part of Citrix. So we had a lot of Citrix servers in our data centers. So yeah, Citrix, I've been known and been around Citrix for a long time, which is interesting because you and the company are in the process of developing your own workplace app. So what's the premise of the app, and why did you as Citrix decide to build that? Because I've known Citrix for a long time, and it's not something I thought I would have thought Citrix would do. So what's the premise, and why has Citrix built it?
So part of it is that so the original Citrix and how we got started is in the server optimization, which is what you were talking about. So you have an Amazon cloud, it does data packets and makes sure that all of that is optimized. That has evolved through the company into the desktop as a service. And then the cloud version of that is workspace as a service. So like that you can access things. A large part of that is apps. So a lot of the apps that are developed through Workspace it's like a portal, almost like your phone is a portal to get to, SAP, or to get to Workday, or to get to ServiceNow, other business applications that your company may use, to be able to get to on-prem information that you may have, as well as cloud-based. So that's sometimes you need a tool that will help you navigate all that. The part of that platform is to enable companies and our partners to create shortcut kind of built to purpose. So I might have Workday which is a HR platform for those who don't know, but it will queue up within a sort of a quick list of action items. Hey, you have an expense, you have a a time off to approve, or it's time for you to do your employee review. I might have ServiceNow, which a lot of people use for their IT backend support. It may say you have a ticket to review or your ticket was processed. So it includes this functionality to build these kind of quick, pulling an action item out of an app and do a workflow. So it may be that it's time off, but then it'll go to Concur so I can book my travel, and then it'll go directly to my expense report. So it has these workflows. So the reason when the real estate team had identified a need to have, and this is pre-COVID, to have an app so that people could easily look at our floor plans. If they were traveling, they could see different offices, they could look at amenities, look at what the lunch specials were. And then I had started a workplace design strategy council within Citrix, where we tried to at least quarterly make sure HR, technology, and our IT teams and our engineering teams, our brand teams, our marketing teams, and our real estate teams, all of whom were playing and work in the built environment in different ways, and how employees use space, that our efforts were aligned. So if we were doing a project like we were building out a new portfolio or looking at a new experience center, we were all aligned in what that looked like. So within that, the real estate team said, hey, we're going to buy an off-the-shelf kind of app to do this. And our engineer said, hey, let's partner to do that. And we're like, great, that'd be fun. So the good news is the real estate team doesn't always have the opportunity to be a key part of evolving the business. Yep. And this was an opportunity for us to do that. So we partnered with engineering to take the business need, which was reducing the friction of the employee experience so they could more easily consume space in a mobile format, and get information to plan visits and to plan their day. We started working with the engineering team to do that. And then not only from engineering, and then I went to the product and the design interface. So as we're evolving this, we could say, hey, this isn't a great user interface. The product team would say, hey, we're having this issue also with other customers, and the engineering team would be able to evolve it, and the design team would evolve it. So then that became part of the toolkit that any partner or client who was using this workspace to develop their own apps would have sort of an enhanced toolkit. So that was great. We learned a lot about what was really good about it. We also learned a lot about its limits as a tool. And then it actually we launched it during COVID, and we were able to, prioritize some of the features that were COVID features, like which desks are available. And like many companies, we've moved from, a mix of assigned, and we call it work anywhere space, but you sort of flex hotel desking, to almost 100% flex hotel desking. And so when you do that, the prioritization of a tool to book a desk and understand what's at a desk, who's sitting near you, those features become a higher priority. So that is where it landed when we launched it. And we still use the tool today. It was never designed to sell to clients. It was more designed for sales to show, here is the kind of cool things that you can do with this product. Right. And so it wasn't, and that was an interesting thing when we're trying to partner with people. We're not trying to compete with you. We needed to have one partner in there between us and engineering that could render our floor plans, because that was, again, a technology that they weren't going to develop, or an expertise they weren't going to develop internally. They could take the APIs and pull it in to the app, but they weren't going to create rendering software to take something from Archibus and pull it into a digital platform.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. And from building it, as you said, learning the good, the bad, the ugly about it, was the process, and you showed your excitement earlier about working with engineering, but was the process when you all got together, was the process an easy one? And I think I probably know the answer to this, but was given who Citrix is and does, and the skill sets you have in house, but was it an easy process? And would you recommend anyone building their own, or would you recommend people going out and using what's already out there and plugging different bits and pieces in?
So the short answer is no. I do not recommend anyone to do the path that we did. Do not try this at home, people. There are paid professionals who make workspace apps for a living. Use one of them. Like that is what I would recommend. So, and to dial it back a little bit, the underlying, even though we had great resources, that wasn't what they do every day. So
Yeah.
they had to learning curve. We had a learning curve, and it's never going to be their focus. So, we had a dedicated team for this project, but then they're not going to evolve the product. They needed to get to an end game, and so there's companies that are purpose driven to create and evolve and continue to say, what's the cutting edge? How can we improve this? Now, we did have a lot more control over what were the features that we needed to promote and have at the front end, right? So there was that. But the other thing is, people are like, well, we'll just develop it in-house, it'll be cheaper. It is not, people. It is not cheaper to do that. Let me just tell you why. So, you have your engineering talent. They're taken offline from doing other things. There's project management time. So it took a tremendous amount of my time. And eventually we actually hired a third party, a project manager, because when we got closer to delivery, there was just a lot of detail and as in interfacing both with our internal engineers, and we ended up using JLL's OSIS because we needed a tool that could take the maps from Archibus, but also on a mobile and a desktop platform, which really limited the number of partners that we could potentially have. But so working with them to make sure that evolved, and it wasn't their priority either because they now have a competing app, the JLL Jet. So again, the partners in there, it's not going to be their priority. And then you have the learning curve, the hosting fees. So you still have to pay for, space for these things. And then the ongoing management and maintenance, it adds up to be a lot more than somebody who's taking that development time and they amortize it over multiple clients versus all of that time just being on your client.
Yeah.
So that said, I learned a lot. But the most important thing is don't try this at home. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that would be the answer. And if anyone was going to do it and do it well, having known Citrix for a long time, it would be Citrix. But as you said, Citrix are really good at a lot of things, but this is not their wheelhouse.
Yeah, we're not an app builder. We're not even an app builder. We're an app platform at this point, but that's different from being a builder.
Yes. Yeah.
And I've heard of people in other things like SAS, which is a big software company locally. It's the largest private software company, I think. But anyway, they internally developed their POS system for their cafe. Why? Like, why would you why would you spend your developers' time developing a POS system for your cafe? And then it's just not ever as fluid and that technology doesn't play nice with other technology because it's not designed that way.
And then you've got to maintain it and update it and keep it going. And when something else comes out that it needs to plug into, you need to do that. And it's interesting. Lots of companies that we speak to are still trying to do some of this stuff on their own, and it's not in their wheelhouse. And I think it's happening less and less. But it still does happen in this space. Well, but not just in our space, in the real estate space as well. We've got an IT team, and one of them's got some development skill sets. Great, but you're a REIT, and you want value from your properties, and you've got your own IT. So why would you try and build a car parking app or a point of sales system, or anything else like that?
Yeah, one of my first REIT, we got into the e-commerce business because we had a visionary leader. And, it wasn't a bad play overall, except for we developed our own e-commerce platform. We were looking at distribution and being responsible for the distribution system. That was not in our wheelhouse. And ultimately, the REIT was taken private. In essence, it failed as a REIT because they were trying to do too many things instead of sticking with their core business, which is real estate, or in this case, corporate real estate, supporting a business that doesn't do that as their primary. Yeah. But people think they can save money.
Well, they
don't.
You might save money in the first 12 months, but then if you do a total cost of ownership, you're like, right, we've developed version 1.0. What about version 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and integrations and everything else and maintenance and support? And when it goes wrong, you've got your own internal clients throwing sticks and stones at you rather than just you're out. Never want
Although
to.
it does help. It does help when the engineers are like, "This app sucks." I'll be like, "Yeah, it wasn't our choice. Like, there's an opportunity here to, yes, to not." To have a better user experience and to have something that can evolve as the business needs change. Because at some point, the business needs will change, we'll want to evolve, and we're going to end up buying something off the shelf. And so all that integration we did with the initial, that's going to be something that at least we're getting some leverage because during COVID, I mean, we'll have this app for, say 3 to 5 years, and then we're going to start from scratch again.
And hopefully Biden.
Yes, and absolutely buy it. Yes.
So on following on from that, lots of people in Citrix, lots of real estate. You're responsible for operations and portfolio management of the largest sites in America for Citrix. So following on from the app, what do you use smart building solutions, and if so, how do they help? I know we talked about the app, which helped the workplace piece, but what about the buildings themselves, and how do you manage the operations and the portfolio management?
So we use some automated building controls for HVAC primarily, lighting and shades. It's mostly in our own portfolio. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, and we had a build to suit 100%. We in essence built it out in partnership with the developer. So it was a LEED Platinum building. We had the time and energy to invest in a lot of those, but many companies, their real estate portfolio is leased, and so they're going to have fewer of those unless the landlord is providing them. But developers are getting more and more as a differentiator for
Yes.
energy savings and sustainability goals. When we're looking at technology investment, there's just a lot of places that you can invest in design and technology, right? You just need to keep your spaces current, and now we have this whole new thing of we need to rethink how we're using space. So that's a way to spend money. You need to have, just the basics like good AV and up-to-date desk equipment, right? Yeah. People think about technology and they forget a big part of technology is just things should turn on and they should work, right? There's optimization, but there's sort of the basics. And then, as I mentioned, a lot of companies are moving to more fluid use of space. So this desk booking app, you need a way to consume that. And then measuring, like the data part of that. So that's another thing. And we've definitely we use the badge reports. We're evolving to more like Wi-Fi pings, conference room usage, but also sensors. So I think a lot of our investment in our energy has been on the data and understanding how people use space. So as you try new things, you can say, was that effective? Not. And then, as we mentioned, just the cost-effective and resource building tools that there is to invest in as well. So there's a lot of very valuable investment priorities, and then there's never enough money to do all that. So,
and are you, from a company point of view, have you got a strategy or a priority list of what's the most important parts to roll out? Because I always say to people, or people say, we want to digitize a building. We want, when people walk up, the door opens and the lift comes down and the lights go on and off and all that whizzy bang stuff, which sounds great, but in practice, it's hard to do and it will cost you a lot of money and doesn't give you the biggest return on investment. It might give you some customer satisfaction from an end user point of view, but I think it brings with it a lot of risk. And then if it doesn't work, then you've got more unhappy people because they've got something that doesn't work. Whereas if they didn't have it at all, but they had a smart building that had good indoor air quality, they knew when queues were busy in the cafeteria and the gym or whatever else you might have in your building. Do you have a priority list that you're working through to kind of digitize your buildings in your estate?
Yeah, so we definitely had a priority list pre-COVID, and then COVID has changed a lot of things, like what does our real estate portfolio look like?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so a lot of the things that we had been looking at, we're still investing in things like I mentioned, like the Wi-Fi data mining and the conference room data, because that will be in place no matter what our portfolio looks like. But things that are specific building applications is not where we're investing right now until we know where that lands.
Yeah, and it makes sense. You don't need to buy something if you've already got certain amounts of data that's already helping you. Cisco CMX, if you've got the right layout, can give you some quite good data. If you've got the right video conferencing systems, that can tell you how many people are in the room and how many people were connected and all that sort of stuff. So you can start to pull that together yourself if you need to. So
I think that's the biggest area that we've been working on just internally, and again, internal resources, with some, pulling off the shelf, but developing a dashboard that pulls in this disparate sources of information so you can get a story. What's going on with the portfolio? Where are people showing up to work? What kinds of people are showing up to work? Departments and 3Ps versus employees, and what is their usage pattern through the week, and what is their peak, the peak traffic, and so those kinds of things. So as we start to look at how our portfolio evolves, we have some foundational information. And also it's been very helpful to debunk some of the, the engineers will come back if they have dedicated desks. Oh, really? Let's look at some data. So we'll do pilots, and here's a dedicated neighborhood. You guys assign these seats, you do whatever you want, and compare that engineering team to another engineering team who's just fluidly using the space, and there's no appreciable difference. So that's a lot of where our energy is spent right now, is understanding user behavior and to try to use that to forward and future-proof our buildings as we're trying to figure out what it looks like post-pandemic.
I was going to ask about engineers, because some engineers really do like their own desks and put their own kit in it. So that's an interesting one. That the ones that didn't were okay with not having a static desk. So,
well, no one's okay with not having a static desk. They all want a static desk. It has helped a lot in partnering with the business to help people understand, because I got to be the person who said, guess what, everyone's going to be moving to this more fluid work environment, and all the VPs are going to lose your office. Yay. So as an opportunity to, you can just spin it however you want, but ultimately people feel like they had things taken away from them.
Yeah.
And so the question will be how we piece that back together as people feel more comfortable coming into the office and as user behavior changes. But, as I started, Citrix is an anywhere, anytime, any device kind of company. And so our hybrid work strategy has reflected that. And so that does affect how people use the space, which makes it more important that we understand that and can measure that.
Yeah. And I guess when you said it before, and this is what a lot of people are doing with the portfolio, is some of that end user app experience type stuff is okay, but when you've got probably the amount of real estate that you've got as Citrix, and now flexible working is here to stay, unless you're Elon Musk or the Mr. Goldman Sachs, I can't remember his name, who both said you are 100% back in the office whether you like it or not.
And their employees say, I don't think I was going to say something not very PC, but they. It was 2 letters, and they were FU. Those were the letters. Yes.
Yeah, it's looking at your real estate and looking at how much you physically need now. A lot of our customers are doing that. If you're the landlord, it's very different to you as the occupier / tenant, because there's a lot of space that you could probably give back now. If you own the building and you're in it completely, it's yours. You may want to then sublet it if you so wish. IT and security, some companies have a bit of a heart attack when you say you're going to do that. They're going to break in through my firewall or physically plug a cable in or whatever.
Right.
But there's a lot you can give back if you really start to bring the data sets together. And I think the more you go on this journey of Citrix, the more data sets you want to overlay. It goes beyond the people count and the meeting room and the floor and the building. When you start to overlay indoor air quality, people and energy, there's huge amounts of savings to be made there. And that's when you probably want a Citrix to look at a platform that's out there already and not build one like you built the end user app.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because then there's some big savings to be made there. We've helped. There's a case study coming out. I won't say who it is just yet, but there's a case study coming out of a company that we've helped management consultants. We haven't even connected to the BMS yet, but by having the indoor air quality and the people count, we're able to tell them, look at what's going on with your HVAC.
Right.
You've got HVAC going on in winter, and nobody's coming in until 9 or 9:30, but it's going on at 7:30 in the morning, and then it stays on until 8 o'clock at night. But everyone's gone by 6. So those things you start to, when you've made some big chunky savings, I should say, like we had 1 million square feet. We only now need 750,000 square feet. Great, we've done the people count. What about overlaying all the other bits? That's
Well,
when
and
you
optimizing that 750,000 square, because
correct.
your first cost savings opportunity and resource, I mean, it's just inefficient to have a lot of buildings that you're not occupying, right? So, but then once you do that and you're like, okay, this is going to be it, then
The next
investing in
step,
those
the next
next
step.
level decisions where,
Yeah, cool. If you need any help, let us know. But
okay.
so I don't have any other questions that people have sent in, but we do have our quick fire round of questions that I always ask. But before I get there, you mentioned something earlier that you had played a lawyer or an attorney on television, so I need to know about that.
No, it's just a joke. Yeah, it's just a joke that they used to have a commercial in the U.S. I'm guessing it may have been global, but it was like, I can draft this contract because I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. So this idea that it was just a joke. Yeah. So no, I've literally not played one on TV. I just I behave as one occasionally within the boundaries of the legal profession. So I definitely do not cross that line.
Well, I'm sure. I'm just all my alarms going off, so apologies. But I imagine there's lots of lawyers who cross the boundaries in and outside of their work as well. So
I would suspect that might be true. Yeah.
So Jenna, we're just going to finish off with the quick fire round of questions. So this is where we do ask the same questions every podcast, people. So if you're getting bored with that, I apologise. Maybe you can give me some new quick fire suggestions. But what was your first ever job, Jenna?
My first ever job, aside from babysitting, which I did at the age of 10, I would not even let my kids walk out the house unsupervised at 10. But no, I was full on babysitting. I worked for a civil engineering firm, and getting plot plans and doing the old-fashioned blueprint back when it was an ammonia machine. So I, to this day, cannot smell as well as other people. But then again, if there's a noxious odor, I can mouth breathe with the best of them.
That's good to know. That's good to know. When and where are you most productive?
I'm most productive I'm like a big believer in multiple screens. So my first actually was ironically not at the architecture firm, which had multiple screens, the title insurance company. They were very good at making sure the workers were productive. And so I've gotten to be quite attached to that. So it's very hard for me to just work on my laptop in random places, even though I would love to be able to do that. But I'm talking to you, I have a big screen over here. So even in my home environment, I have multiple screens. But I love to be able to see, and I'm most productive when I'm surrounded by the vibrancy of people, which is one of the things I love about corporate real estate and being in the office. At home, I have a village in my house anyway, so it's kind of the same, but not. But I think for me, I draw energy from the people and just the activity of people collaborating or working in parallel towards similar ends.
I'm the same in the multiple screen thing. I have multiple screens, and most of our team have multiple screens as well. It's multiple screens, not screams, but
some days that too.
Some days that happens. Especially people say, "Michael, what are you doing?" But multiple screens for me is big because I've never actually calculated how much more efficient it makes you. But I'm like you. If I'm on my laptop and I've got to flick between screens, whereas if I've got two big screens in front of me and I can see one or the other inputting something over here or doing something over here, that's a big thing.
So much more efficient. Mm-hmm.
I've just seen, and it was on Instagram, and I'm yet to go and really dig into it and see if it's actually as good as it says it is. But there's this thing that you can stick on the back of your laptop, and then two screens come out from either side, the same size as your laptop. So you can have three 30-inch screens, and it just plugs into the power on the laptop. So I might have to look at one of those because, if, like you said,
to be more mobile.
If you're mobile and you're going to a hotel, which I'm about to do next week in New York for a week. If I could have those three screens on my laptop, that would be awesome. The
other thing you can do, bring an HDMI cord and plug it into the TV, which I do a lot. I totally do that. And I'm like, there's my new screen. It's monstrous.
I always have a 3-meter HDMI screen, a HDMI cable when I travel. So
yes.
I found out the 1 meter, the 1.5, and the 2 meters. I probably just should have gone for the long one straight away, but I learned by mistake.
Depending on that, because the ergonomics of that aren't fabulous all the time, but it is. I don't think people think to do that. I think this is going to be a fun tip for people who travel.
Yes, I agree. I've been doing it for quite a while. So your favorite book is the next one. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book. I should have known this was going to be a question. I I'm a very eclectic reader, so I have a lot of business books that I've read. I've had a lot of like, I have like four book clubs, so it's kind of hard for me to pick. Um, let's see. Okay, I'm just going to pick Life of Pi because that's the one that's coming to me, just because it's interesting on so many levels, um, which
I've
isn't as
not,
interesting as a business book, but
yeah, well, it doesn't have to be a business book.
uh-huh.
Mine would be a children's book that I've read to all three of my children. Uh, I've not read Life of Pi, but I don't know if my wife has it. My wife and my youngest son. I've got three kids. My wife and my youngest son are the big readers. So
hmm
my wife reads a lot. I'd love to have more time to read, but I just don't.
And
But
another quick one, Atomic Habits is a great book that I'm now actually going to force my whole family to do a chapter at a week. So that's what for my birthday, which was this week, I like to, my son is not great at presents, but I'm really good at trying to coerce him to do things that are helpful for him as a family activity. So that's what we're going to do, Atomic Habits. That's actually another great thing to just, little changes in your life can make a big difference. So.
cool. I'll have a look at Atomic Habits. When you're not working, how do you spend your time? I gather it's reading for some of it if you've got that many
A
book
lot
clubs.
of it is reading. Yes, yes. I'm actually down to two book clubs now, but I did have mother, son, mother, quarterly. And yeah, no, I'm a big reader. Right now I'm renovating my house and I'm the president of Cornet, the Carolinas
Yes,
chapter.
I saw
And
that. Yeah.
so, yeah, I have like three part-time jobs, one of which I get paid for. That's a full-time job though, right? I guess. So yeah, so lately I've been renovating my house, as many people have during COVID.
Yes.
But it has been really satisfying. It'll be super satisfying when my deck is finished.
Nice. Nice. We are about to start doing ours. What's your favorite? What's your favorite office that you've ever worked in?
The Raleigh office for Citrix. I did go to Google. I got to tour two of their Bay Area campuses this week, and
Yeah,
that would be my favorite office if I ever worked at Google. Oh my gosh, any Google office would be fabulous.
Jenna, I've heard lots of Google offices are very cool, so I imagine that would be a good place. I'm yet to go to one, so there is one in King's Cross in London, so I might have to figure out who I know there to get me in there one day. The last question, Jenna. So, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give your younger self? Is the very last question.
I would say to just be curious and less rigid. And it's hard to know because a lot of where I've gotten is because, I've doubled down and focused and, gotten stuff done and pushed through. But I wonder how many of my projects would have had better outcomes. The people I was serving would have been more bought in. And I would have just enjoyed the process more if I had just been more curious and
Yeah.
less assumed that I had the answers or my way was the best way, which I still often think to be fair. But I can at least be curious about why other people think that's true also. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think being curious, that's definitely I would have, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think quite a few people, if they thought about it, they would be more curious and taking in other people's perspectives. I'm a bit like you. I think, Jenna, when I was younger, I was driven to try and get everything done and to make sure I knew what I was doing, and sometimes proving that I was right wasn't necessarily the right thing. So
Yes.
just because you're right doesn't mean you're right. So
A
uh,
hundred percent, as the wisdom of being older has shown me time and time again.
yes, Jenna, thank you very much for coming on. I hope the deck gets finished soon, and you can go out and read a book on it.
That will
Uh,
be lovely. Thank you, and enjoy your trip to the States.
Yes, I will be probably coming to North Carolina soon. I have a very good friend who's just moved there. He's moved there from British Columbia. And we're also looking to grow a team outside of New York. So North or South Carolina, we're yet to figure out where it is. So I might just give you a call and come and visit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool.
Sounds
Jenna,
great.
thank you
Thank
very
you
much
so
for
much.
coming on. Take care.
Okay, have a great day.
Bye bye.
Bye.